I've seen Annabelle. I saw Annabelle at it was like the Warrens Paranormal Convention or something like that in the Mohegan Sun a casino. And it was this gigantic casino, and the line to see Annabelle, it went for like, I'm not kidding, probably at least half a mile, right? Through the casino. Everybody wanted to see Annabelle. And then I think the casino started to complain and they were like, get this line moving. And so somebody came in and just told everybody to crowd around. And, as a religion professor, I look at world religions. It looked visually like if you see Muslims going to Mecca on the Hajj, right? If you just had these kinds of spiraling swarms of people trying to get close to this doll, and they were selling Annabelle vodka at the convention, right? That was something you could buy. So they took bottles of vodka and they said, "We guarantee every bottle of vodka has been aged in the basement of the Warrens' house next to Annabelle with the glass open." So it could absorb as much kind of evil energy from Annabelle as possible. And if you bought a bottle of this stuff, which I did not, it was $200 a bottle. It comes with gloves to handle it, to I guess protect you from the evil. But then you drink it, so I don't really understand what exactly they were doing here. So in our book, The Exorcist Effect, which I wrote with a co-author, we have a chapter on Ed and Lorraine Warren. We tried to find out everything we could about them. We went through archives we found letters they had written. We talked to people who knew the Warrens before they died. We really did as much research as we could. All of their stories, we could say, whether or not you believe there was really a demon here, these were real people. This was where these events actually occurred. In some cases, we could find, police reports or other kind of data to support it. Annabelle was the only one where we could find no evidence that this ever happened, right? And in fact, in different versions of the story the Warrens told, the names of the people involved would change, the locations would change. So we were kind of left with the impression that the whole Annabelle story was made up. Right? I'm not saying that I know that for sure, but that was kind of the impression that we were left with. The other thing is, Annabelle is just a Raggedy Ann doll, right? The actual Annabelle is kind of an off the rack, big Raggedy Ann doll like you could have bought at any toy store in America back in the 80s. What makes it spooky is that they made this enclosure for it, right? That says never ever open, and there's a tarot card with the devil taped to it. And we saw the Warrens had created a lot of kind of sort of framed enclosures like this to hold sort of ordinary toys and objects that they said had demons. And what made them spooky was the actual enclosure, the candles, the rosaries that they said were sort of keeping the evil bound in. And before the Warrens were paranormal investigators, they were artists. Ed Warren was a painter. He loved to paint haunted houses. So I think even if the Annabelle story might have been made up, perhaps to attract people to their museum, as art, I think it's still pretty interesting as taking sort of a doll and making it into this object that's so famous and interesting that people will pay $200 to have a bottle of vodka that was next to it. So that's my take on Annabelle.
So you would say that there is money to be made in the niche things that you enjoy.
Yeah, I mean, so I talked to lots of people who said, we think the Warrens were scam artists. We think they did bad things and so forth. And there's certainly that critique to be made. One thing I would ask people who had met the Warrens and said that is I would say, well, this seems like a really difficult way to make some money, right? As a scammer, right? There would be much easier ways to do this for sure, right? For example, they could have started some kind of televangelism ministry, right? And said, just write us checks and we'll bless you or something like that. This seemed way harder. They also never charged people for their services, right? They would try to get book and movie contracts, but they weren't just charging people to come out to your house and look for demons and things like that. So I think you can make a living at this, but it's not easy. I don't think that the Warrens were kind of rolling in it, and I think that they actually worked pretty hard for the money that they were able to make.